Okay, so Assyria.
The Assyrian Empire.
Yeah, the Assyrian Empire, right?
Yeah.
Most people, when they think Assyria, they think military power, brutal conquests, all that stuff.
Right.
But we're going back further today
Mm-hmm.
to the very roots.
To the very beginning.
Yeah, to see how this empire even got started.
Absolutely.
So we're going to be looking at the sources that you provided.
Okay.
Maps, articles,
Mm-hmm.
even some archaeological reports to really understand this cradle of Assyrian power.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart approach. You
Right.
can't understand the rise of any empire
Right.
without looking at the environment that shaped it.
Right.
And the Assyrian story is really tied to the land.
Exactly. We're talking ancient Mesopotamia, but not the south,
Yeah.
with its fertile floodplains.
Right.
Assyria was further north along the Tigris River,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a very different landscape.
Very different. Yeah, they didn't have the same easy access to irrigation.
Right.
So large-scale agriculture, like in the South, that wasn't really their strength. Okay.
But what they did have
Yeah.
was resources, an abundance of resources.
Okay.
Timber, stone, metal,
Okay.
all from these nearby mountains.
Oh, wow.
And this really shapes their development in a profound way.
So instead of farming their environment, kind of nudge them toward
Mm.
becoming builders, craftsmen.
Even warriors,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, imagine having a surplus of materials perfect for constructing impressive cities,
Right,
strong fortifications,
Right.
and of course, weapons.
of course.
It lays the groundwork for a very different kind of society.
And then there's location,
Ah, yes.
right on these major trade routes,
Mm.
crisscrossing the ancient world.
A crossroads.
I'm looking at this map you sent.
Mm.
Anatolia to the north,
Yeah.
the Levant to the west,
Mhm.
and of course the heartland of Mesopotamia to the south.
Right.
Assyria was smack dab in the middle of it all.
Think of it as a cultural and economic crossroads.
Yeah.
They weren't just trading goods. They were exposed to a constant flow of ideas,
Mm-hmm.
technology, even religious practices
Wow.
from all these different regions.
They were getting all kinds of influence.
It's crucial to understanding how Assyria rose to prominence.
It makes you wonder, how did this exchange actually play out?
Yeah.
Were they taking bits and pieces from every culture they encountered, or was
Yeah.
it more selective?
Right. Were they just adopting things whole cloth, or were they adapting them to
Yeah.
fit their existing ways?
Yeah. How did this work?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Let's take writing, for instance.
Okay.
They adopted cuneiform from the Sumerians to the south.
Okay.
It wasn't a direct copy and paste, though.
Right.
They adapted it to their own language and needs,
Okay.
which allowed them to develop complex record-keeping systems,
Wow.
religious texts, and administrative practices.
So it's like they were taking the best tools available and customizing them for their own purposes.
Yeah.
Kind of like open source software today. You take the basic code and build on it to create something new.
That's a great analogy.
Cool.
And this wasn't limited to just writing.
Okay.
They also adopted governance models from the Akkadian Empire,
Oh.
another major power in the region.
So they were looking around, seeing what worked,
Absolutely.
and figuring out how to integrate that.
This ability to learn and adapt from their neighbors.
Yeah.
It was a key factor in their early success.
Okay, so we're seeing this pattern of adaptability already,
Mm-hmm.
taking the best of what others have to offer and making it their own.
Right.
But to really understand their culture, we have to talk about their cities.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I know there's one in particular that stands out.
We have to talk about Ashur,
Ashur.
both the city and the god.
Whoa, hold on. The city's named after the god.
Yes.
That's not something you see every day.
It tells us right away that religion was deeply intertwined with their sense of identity
Oh, wow.
and even political power from the very beginning. This wasn't just a place to live.
Right.
It was a symbol of their beliefs, a sacred center.
And it was strategically located too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
On those same trade routes we were just talking about.
Exactly. It was a hub of economic activity, and that wealth fueled its growth and influence.
Wow.
But it's important to remember,
Yeah.
Ashur, the city, is really inseparable from Ashur, the god.
Okay.
He was the chief deity of the Assyrians,
Okay.
and his influence permeated every aspect of their lives.
So let's dive into that.
Okay.
What made Ashur the god so important to them?
Well, he was more than just a protector.
Ah.
He was a war god,
Okay.
a symbol of their strength and ambition.
Oh.
But unlike other Mesopotamian cities with their pantheons of gods,
Right.
Ashur held a unique position.
So instead of a divine committee,
Mm-hmm.
They had one head honcho calling the shots.
Precisely. And that's reflected in their political structure, their desire for unity and dominance. It's fascinating how these early religious beliefs can foreshadow a civilization's trajectory.
Right.
But before we get too ahead of ourselves,
Yeah.
we should also mention another important city, Nineveh.
Right, Nineveh.
Yeah.
Didn't it become a major center of power later on?
It did.
Okay.
But its rise to prominence comes a bit later in their story.
Okay.
Keep that in mind. We'll be coming back to it.
I'm already sensing some connections here.
Yeah.
But let's get back to Ashur, the god, for a moment.
Okay.
How did his worship actually manifest in their everyday lives? I mean, what made their religious practices unique?
Well, their temples weren't just places of worship. They were centers of power, economic activity, and learning.
Wow.
The priests held considerable influence in Assyrian society, acting as advisors to kings and administrators of vast temple estates.
So it's like a blend of spiritual and secular authority all rolled into one.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this fusion of religious and political power is a defining characteristic of the Assyrian Empire that we'll see play out time and time again.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So we're starting to see a clearer picture of early Assyria, a society shaped by its rugged environment, strategically located for trade, and deeply devoted to this powerful god who embodies all of their ambitions.
Absolutely.
But I'm curious about those temples you mentioned.
Yeah.
What were they like?
Oh, they were incredible. I mean, archaeological excavations have uncovered some incredible remnants of Assyrian temples.
Oh, wow.
Think towering ziggurats dedicated to Ashur, adorned with these intricate carvings depicting scenes of war and religious rituals.
Wow.
These structures were meant to inspire awe and demonstrate the power of both the god and the king who served as his representative on earth.
Wow. It's like you can almost feel the weight of that history.
Yeah.
Just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Those carvings, were they purely symbolic, or did they offer glimpses into actual rituals or beliefs?
They offer both.
Okay.
For example, we see scenes of animal sacrifice, a common practice throughout Mesopotamia.
Right.
But in Assyria, it often took on a grander scale,
Really?
reflecting their focus on military prowess.
Okay.
The sacrifice wasn't just about appeasing the gods.
Right.
It was a display of power and dominance,
Okay.
a way to demonstrate their ability to control and utilize resources.
So even their religious practices had this militaristic undercurrent running through them.
I think that's a keen observation, and it's something that distinguishes them from other Mesopotamian cultures.
Right.
While war was a reality for everyone in the region,
Sure.
for the Assyrians, it became central to their identity, their sense of purpose, even their relationship with the divine.
Which brings us back to that question we touched on earlier about their adaptability.
Right.
They were open to new ideas, borrowed from other cultures. But did this constant exposure to outside influences affect their religious beliefs as well?
It's a complex question.
Okay.
While they adopted practical elements like cuneiform and governance models, their religious beliefs remain remarkably focused on Ashur.
Okay.
It's like they saw their god as the ultimate source of their strength.
Right.
And they weren't willing to dilute that power by incorporating other deities.
So it was almost like a strategic decision. We've got this powerful god on our side.
Yeah.
Let's not mess with a good thing.
Exactly. And this unwavering devotion to Ashur, combined with their militaristic tendencies, would have significant implications for their expansion and empire building in the centuries to come.
Yeah.
But before we move on to that, there's one more aspect of their early culture we need to touch upon. Their relationship with the natural world. Oh, right. We talked about their environment, how it shaped their development. But what about their beliefs about nature itself? Did they see it as something to be exploited? Or was there a deeper connection there?
Their relationship with nature was multifaceted.
Okay.
On one hand, they certainly exploited their resources to build their cities and fuel their military expansion. But they also recognized the power of the natural world.
Okay.
And its importance to their survival.
Yeah.
For instance, the Tigris River, despite its challenges, was essential for trade and transportation.
So it was a pragmatic relationship, one of respect, but also a recognition of the need to harness nature for their own ends.
Precisely.
Kind of like many civilizations throughout history, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's also evidence of a deeper spiritual connection to nature.
Okay.
In some of their myths and religious practices.
Oh, for example, they believed that certain mountains were sacred, home to spirits and supernatural beings.
Wow.
And they incorporated natural elements like trees and animals into their religious iconography.
It's fascinating how these seemingly contradictory impulses,
right,
the drive to conquer and control nature, alongside a reverence for its power, can coexist within a culture.
It speaks to the complexity of human relationships with the natural world.
Yeah.
Something that's still relevant today as we grapple with issues like climate change and sustainability.
Right.
But in the case of the Assyrians, this complex relationship also contributed to their resilience and adaptability, qualities that would prove essential as they navigated the turbulent landscape of ancient Mesopotamia.
Okay, so we've laid out the groundwork, their environment, their adaptability, their religious fervor, and their complex relationship with nature.
Yes.
It's a pretty compelling mix.
It is.
And I can already see how these elements would contribute to their rise to power.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, you mentioned Nineveh earlier.
Yes.
And its later prominence.
Right.
How does that fit into the picture?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
And it takes us to the next chapter of the Assyrian story.
Okay.
While Ashur represented their religious and cultural heartland, Nineveh would become a symbol of their imperial ambitions.
Okay.
It was located further north, closer to key trade routes and resources that would fuel their expansion.
So it was like Ashur provided the spiritual foundation, the sense of identity, and then Nineveh became the launch pad for their imperial ambitions.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And as we delve into the next phase of their history, we'll see how these two cities and the forces they represent played a pivotal role in shaping the Assyrian Empire.
Okay, I'm ready for the next chapter.
I think you'll find it's a story filled with twists and turns.
Okay.
And more than a few surprises.
Right.
The Assyrians were nothing if not ambitious and relentless in their pursuit of power.
So we've gone from the rugged landscapes of northern Mesopotamia to the bustling city of Ashur.
Right.
The heart of their religious and cultural identity.
Yeah.
And now we're poised on the brink of their imperial expansion.
Absolutely.
With Nineveh waiting in the wings.
It's a pivotal moment.
It is.
All the elements we've discussed, their resourcefulness, their adaptability, their unwavering faith in Ashur, their strategic location, it all comes together to create the conditions for their rise to power.
But going from a city-state to an empire, that's a huge leap.
It is.
What were the catalysts?
Right.
Was it a gradual process, or were there specific events that propelled them onto the world stage?
There were certainly key moments that accelerated their expansion.
Okay.
But it's important to remember that this wasn't a sudden explosion of power. Right.
The Assyrians were patient, strategic, and they played the long game.
So they were thinking ahead.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They didn't just conquer territories.
Right.
They integrated them into their empire.
Okay.
Often through a combination of military might and shrewd diplomacy.
So they weren't just about brute force. There was a method to their madness.
Absolutely. They were masters of logistics, administration, and propaganda.
Wow.
They built roads,
Okay.
established communication networks, and even standardized weights and measures throughout their empire.
Really?
To facilitate trade and control.
Wow. That's impressive.
They also understood the importance of projecting an image of power and authority.
Right.
Both to intimidate their enemies and to inspire loyalty among their subjects.
It sounds like they were incredibly organized.
Yeah.
And efficient. Almost like a well-oiled machine.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And that organizational skill, that attention to detail, it was a key factor in their success.
I can see that.
But let's not forget the human element. Right. We're talking about ambitious rulers, cunning generals, skilled diplomats, individuals who shape the course of history through their decisions and actions.
Right. The people behind the empire.
Exactly.
Are there any figures that stand out?
Oh, there are many.
Okay.
But one who comes to mind is Tiglath-Pileser.
Okay.
A king who reigned in the 11th century BCE.
Okay.
He expanded the empire significantly, pushing into Anatolia and the Levant, securing trade routes, and establishing Assyrian dominance in the region. He was known for his military prowess, but also for his administrative reforms and his building projects.
So a real empire builder, someone who laid the groundwork for the Assyrian Empire's golden age.
Absolutely.
It makes you wonder what drove these individuals. Was it purely a thirst for power, or were there other motivations at play?
Right.
A sense of destiny, perhaps?
Yeah, that's a question historians have been debating for centuries.
Yeah.
It's likely a complex mix of factors, varying from individual to individual.
Right.
But one thing is clear. The Assyrians believed in their own superiority, their right to rule, and they saw their expansion as a fulfillment of their god Ashur's will.
So that unwavering faith we talked about earlier, it wasn't just a religious belief.
Right.
It became a justification for their actions.
Absolutely.
A driving force behind their empire building.
Exactly. And as the empire grew, so too did the influence of Ashur. Temples dedicated to him were built throughout the conquered territories. And his image became a symbol of Assyrian power and authority.
It's incredible how a god worshipped in a small city-state in northern Mesopotamia ended up having such a profound impact on a vast empire.
It is incredible.
Spanning multiple regions and cultures.
It speaks to the power of belief.
Yeah.
The way ideas can shape the course of history.
Right.
But it also reminds us that power, no matter how vast, is never absolute.
Right.
The Assyrian Empire,
yeah,
despite its military might and organizational skills, eventually faced challenges it couldn't overcome.
So what brought about their downfall?
Right.
Was it internal strife, external enemies, or something else entirely?
That, my friend, is a story for another deep dive.
Okay.
But for now, I think we've gained a solid understanding of the foundations of this fascinating empire.
We have.
From the rugged landscapes that shaped their character to the unwavering faith that fueled their ambition.
Right.
We've traced the roots of their rise to power.
We've seen how geography, religion, adaptability, and a keen sense of strategy all played a role in their success.
Yeah.
But as you said, no empire lasts forever.
That's right.
And the story of their decline is just as fascinating as their rise.
Indeed. The Assyrians left behind a legacy of both innovation and brutality.
Right.
A story that continues to resonate thousands of years later.
Yeah.
And I hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity to explore further, to uncover the complexities and contradictions of this ancient world.
Absolutely. I know I'm hooked.
Yeah.
I can't wait to delve into the next chapter to see how their story unfolds.
It's going to be good.
And for you listening, remember that history is never just a collection of facts and dates. It's a tapestry woven from human choices, ambitions, and beliefs.
Absolutely.
And by exploring those threads, we can gain a deeper understanding not only of the past, but of ourselves.
I completely agree.